Hello and welcome to Museum Storytime. The objects in our collections and the people connected with them have had fascinating lives, and this is our chance to tell you their stories. My name's Eilidh and I'm going to be your host. Today we're going to be delving deeper into the stories of those who are in our portrait collection, whose lives are connected to that of the Scottish Reformation and whose lives are inextricably linked with each other's. If you've walked the streets of St Andrews, signs of the Reformation are omnipresent, whether that be the ruins of the cathedral or the PH outside St Salvator's chapel that university students don't stand on for fear of failing their degrees. Today we'll be looking at two portraits of men who represent either side of the Scottish Reformation. First up is Cardinal Beaton, who met a grisly end at St Andrews Castle, and second up is the infamous reformer John Knox. So, Cardinal David Beaton. He was born in 1494 and became Cardinal Archbishop of St Andrews. He studied at both the universities of St Andrews and Glasgow, and in his 16th year was sent to Paris to study civil and canon law. He succeeded his uncle as Archbishop of St Andrews in 1539. He was Chancellor of the University of St Andrews between 1539 and 1546. Beaton was frequently employed on foreign diplomatic service. He played a really important role in establishing the marriage of James V of Scotland and his first wife Madeleine of France, and his second marriage to Mary of Guise, the mother of Mary Queen of Scots. He continued his uncle's policy of knitting a closer alliance with France and standing on the defensive to England. On the death of James V in 1542 and the infant Mary Queen of Scots' inheritance of her father's throne, Beaton produced a will appointing himself and the Earls of Huntly, Argyll and Arran joint regents of Scotland. His opponents, however, declared this a forgery and Beaton was arrested, but he was soon restored to his own castle. The Cardinal was a staunch Catholic and a zealous persecutor of reformers. He enforced really harsh penalties on people he found to be spreading heretical doctrines, and among those he found guilty of this was George Wishart. So Beaton was himself a really extremely powerful man in Scotland at this time, and he was making himself many enemies. So Wishart was burnt in St Andrews in 1546 on the 2nd of March. As revenge for Wishart's death, John Leslie, who was brother to the Earl of Rothes and some others, surprised and murdered the Cardinal in his bedroom at St Andrews Castle. They snuck into the castle disguised as masons, and they executed the Cardinal and then hung his naked body in a pair of sheets from the castle walls before throwing it into the castle's notorious vault dungeon, which is pretty grim. In his History of the Reformation of Scotland, our second figure of the day, John Knox, tells how Beaton's corpse was kept in the dungeon at St Andrews Castle, covered in salt to keep him from stinking. It's not known where his remains were finally buried, and they all took possession of the fortress on the 29th of May 1546. Now there's another clear link between the two men we're looking at today. Wishart, who Beaton had burnt at the stake, was a really close mentor of John Knox, and when Wishart undertook a preaching tour of the Lothians in December 1545, Knox's sort of complete conversion to the Reformed faith actually dates from his contact with Wishart, whose memory he cherished forever afterwards. The execution of Wishart really altered the course of Knox's life. Knox was born to a poor family near Haddington in East Lothian in around 1514, we're not entirely sure, and it's thought he was educated here at the University of St Andrews. After the events of 1546, Knox was arrested by French forces who were allied with the Catholic Scots in 1547. When he was released, he was exiled to England, and he spent time there working in the Church of England, which was already reformed. He eventually became royal chaplain to the young Edward VI, son of Henry VIII. After Mary Tudor, Edward VI's Catholic sister, ascended the throne in England, John Knox was forced to resign, and as a result ended up moving to Geneva. And here he met the reformer John Calvin. He greatly influenced Knox's thinking around what the Reformation in Scotland should be like. In the summer of 1558, Knox published his best known pamphlet, which was called The First Blast of the Trumpet Against the Monstrous Regimen of Women. Knox states that his purpose was to demonstrate how abominable before God is the empire or rule of a wicked woman. He was well known for sparring with Mary, Queen of Scots, the Catholic Queen of Scotland, who had returned to the country of her birth after a childhood and adolescence at the Catholic French court, where she actually became Queen of France for a time. Her proposed marriage to Don Carlos of Spain would likely have put paid to the Scottish Reformation, so obviously Knox was not happy about this prospect, and he made it clear what he made of the match. Mary, in return, charged Knox with treason, but the Privy Council wouldn't convict him of this. Knox fought Protestant cause in Scotland right up until his death in 1572, and he's remembered as probably the key figure of the Scottish Reformation. Today's Museum Storytime has given you a bit of an insight into what the dynamics of the Scottish Reformation were like, and how central the University of St Andrews was to Scotland's fate. See you next time. Bye.